Welcome to Plan and Spend.
This material is not intended to constitute any tax, investment, or legal advice. If you need investment, legal, tax advice, and/or credit counseling, please consult with a professional within those areas. Today, we're going to talk about how to track and control your money, how to decide if you really need to spend money on something, how to cut back on spending, and developing some healthy financial habits.
In this section, we will learn about spending plans, cash flow statements, and different ways of tracking your money. So the first step is making a spending plan. And that's where you make a list of all your income, expected income or income sources, and then making a list of all of your expenses. And then you compare the two. If your expenses exceed your income, it may be time to take a look at your spending. So in general, if your expenses exceed your income, then there's two ways to fix that. Find ways to increase your income or to reduce your expenses, or you can always do both. Now, as a college student or anyone that's in school right now, increasing income may be hard if you're already working a lot of hours. So you may need to really focus on decreasing your expenses. Now, here's an example of a spending plan worksheet, and this is where you would list again your income at the top, and then you'll see all examples of some expenses at the bottom. So you would fill this in, that way you can see exactly how much you're spending on those particular expenses. And then you can see at that point, you see your income minus expenses means the money that you have available. Now you can view spending plan worksheets online, or you can create your own. You can create your own in either Google Docs or an Excel spreadsheet, whatever makes it easier to keep track of those expenses. Now, as you're looking at your spending plan, you might be looking to see, okay, what's going on here? A common error that can throw off your spending is forgetting to save. So it's always a good idea to pay yourself first by putting some money into savings for an unexpected expense or for working towards a financial goal that you may have for yourself. Another common error is forgetting to allow for a little wiggle room in life. So for example, if you budget $20 a week for gas and gas prices go up, while the amount of driving is the same, you're still spending more money and you will have to adjust for that. Now, that's also out of your control. That's not anything that you can control, but you still have to pay that amount. So you will have to make those adjustments within your budget. You also want to try to give yourself some flexibility for any unexpected expenses that might come up or for an occasional treat for yourself. Now, not keeping track of your expenses can really throw off your budgeting, especially those small expenses that add up over time. So maybe stopping at the gas station to get a drink or a snack, or just making unexpected expense or unexpected purchases. All of those things will add up over time. So even though it may only be $5 here or there, over time, all of that will add up. So you want to be sure to account for all of the money that you spend, whether it's fast food, a birthday gift, or going out with friends. Now, spending online can be challenging to track, but generally you will receive a receipt by email or text. So you want to make sure you have a plan in place to track for those. So keep them and include them in your budget as soon as possible so you don't forget. So the next step is to create a cash flow statement, which is just a way to track when you actually spend your money. So when you put a cash flow statement together with your spending plan, and which the spending plan tracks how your money is spent, you'll have the big picture of what your income and expenses look like over time. A cash flow statement shows you just that, when your money flows in and out of your account. So if you want to keep your finances in good working order, then timing really matters. You'll want the bills that you've included in your spending plan to be paid on time. So as we look at this cash flow statement, we're going to see how this works. So one way to do this is to divide the cash flow statement into pay periods, listing the income and expenses for each time frame, and then determine which bills get paid with each paycheck. So for example, if you see in this example, you see your paychecks are on the 1st and the 15th, and that's when your paycheck is coming in. Any bills that are being paid out of those paychecks should not exceed the paycheck coming in. Now, if you determine that there are some expenses that are going to be paid during that pay period that exceed that paycheck, then you might have to contact your creditors and come up with a pay schedule that, or might have to contact your creditors to come up with a due date that more aligns with your pay schedule. And that way, all of your bills are paid on time and you have enough money to pay them and avoiding any overdraft or bank fees. Now, how do you make all of this happen and work for you? So there's lots of different ways that you can track your expenses. So you can use online banking, budgeting apps. There's also personal finance software that you can use. And you can use your mobile banking app for your banking institution. And all of these things will help you track what you spend your money on and the different types of purchases that you're spending on. Now, another option, if you're not someone that uses apps, would be to typically just use a pen and paper. So that may be carrying a notebook around with you or a planner or something that you're writing down each of those transactions. Anytime you're tracking, if you do any cash back at a debit transaction or if you do an ATM withdrawal, you want to make sure that you're accounting for those as well. Now, another low-tech way to track and control your spending is using the envelope method, which uses envelopes to stay on track. So place an amount of cash in an envelope equal to what you plan to spend in that particular category and label each envelope with a category name. So if you put $20 in your envelope to spend on going out to eat and it's Friday and you only have $5 left over in that envelope, then you might have to think, if I go out to eat, will I be within my budget? Will I be able to spend $5 or less? If not, then you might have to cook a meal at home in order to stay on track with your budgeting. You can move money from one envelope to another, but that's a good sign that either you need to adjust your budget or that you need to cut back on your spending. So you want to make sure that you are monitoring and looking at all of these things as well. Whichever way that you choose, you want to make sure it's a method that you are actually using. Because if you choose a method to say that you have that, but you're not actually use it, then you will not be able to benefit from that method. So use a tracking system that you will actually be comfortable with using each month. Now that we've talked about a spending plan and a cash flow statement and how it's important to use these things, the next step is going on to a good financial wellness path, right? And that's going to be setting goals. So the first thing is setting goals, whether they're short term, which is in the near future, medium range in the next few years, or long term, which is for later on in life. And then you want to develop a plan to meet those goals that you've set for yourself. So you might need to determine how much do you need to save up for each goal, when do you want to reach that goal, and what's your plan to make that happen. The next thing, of course, tracking your spending. If you do this over time, you'll start to see patterns. You might determine what triggers you to buy things on impulse or why you're going out to eat all the time instead of cooking at home. You can learn to identify warning signs and you can begin to figure out how to avoid overspending. So if you have a tendency to spend way too much on makeup or electronics, then don't take the card with you. So that way you're not tempted to overspend or spend money that you don't already have or that you haven't budgeted for. And finally, monitor how well that you're sticking to your spending plan or to your budget. You might need to adjust as you move through life or as income or expenses changes, but that's part of the monitoring period. So make sure that you're doing that along the way.
In this section, we're going to talk about what to do when you don't have enough income to cover your expenses and how to tell the difference between needs and wants. So what do you do when your income isn't enough to cover your expenses? Thinking about your needs and your wants can help you figure out what's most important as you work your way through matching up your income and expenses. So what's a need? What do you have to have in order to live? Everyone needs basic things like food, water, clothing, and shelter. And then there are needs specific to you. You need to communicate, buy school supplies, maybe get back and forth to work or school. And we all have things that we want because they're convenient or bring us comfort. Maybe we really enjoy a fast food burger once in a while, so you choose to spend money on fast food. Or you stop at the corner store for milk on the way home, even though milk is a little cheaper at the out of the way grocery store. Wants are the nice to haves. Not everybody will meet their needs in the same way, and we have a lot of flexibility in how we meet our needs based on our wants. For example, let's say you're a dedicated runner and your running shoes are wearing out. You have choices when deciding how much to spend on those running shoes. It's about figuring out your priorities. Sometimes, how you meet your needs may have some constraints or limits. You may be able to take the bus to work and save a lot of money on transportation, but a construction worker may really need a large truck to haul materials to a job site, so she or he doesn't have a lot of choice in meeting that need. Not everybody will meet their needs in the same way. The one thing that you can count on in life is change. What if you're living at home, but then you decide you want to move out? Where will you live? In a dorm, maybe a house or an apartment? You may want to live alone, but could you give up some privacy to have a roommate and save some money? We talked earlier about spending money on a want, like buying a fast food meal. Most people can cook and eat meals at home, and most people can choose to eat out. Eating out every day is expensive, but if you don't have to completely stop. Instead, you can make it a once a week treat. You can take a tough approach by eliminating wants, but spending doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. Instead, consider using the step down spending method. The step down spending method can help you choose not only which expenses to cut, but also how much to cut each expenses in order to spend less. First, identify how much you're currently spending on a particular category. Then decide how many levels or steps downs you're willing to take. The result is a new spending plan. In going through this process, you may find less expensive choices that you never knew existed, but that can still meet your needs or wants. Some of the categories on this chart may not apply to you. For example, maybe you live at home with your parents, or maybe you don't pay for TV, but you do pay for streaming services. The idea is that everybody has at least some of these expenses, and you almost always have some flexibility in choosing how much you spend. It's important in this process to be honest with yourself, honest about what you really need or want, and be honest about creating a budget that you can stick to over time. Some good rules to follow in keeping your spending on track is saving to buy something that you really want. Let's say it's the latest gaming system. It'll cost less than buying it with borrowed money because in some cases, it might be a lot less. Because when you save money, you earn interest. And when you borrow money, you pay interest. Another thing would be to use a 2-day waiting period for any unplanned expenses. Waiting to spend might also give you time to figure out how much do you really want that item, and you could be avoiding impulse buying. Also, when you do buy something, you can lose the opportunity to do or buy something else. Opportunity costs add to the price of something so that the real price is more than what you thought. In this example, if I buy a movie ticket for $10, I may give up the chance to work 2 hours at my job, which pays me $15 an hour. In this scenario, I just lost $30, which makes the real cost of the movie $40. Thank you for attending our Plan and Spend presentation.